We begin this week with a quote from the individual that I am eventually going to be speaking about. "The nation behaves well if it treats the natural resources as assets, which it must turn over to the next generation increased and not impaired in value." Our topic this week, your favorite president. I swear to you, this was chosen as random as they all are. We have this beret full of the topics that people send in, and every week Lori picks one out at random, and that's the topic that I speak on. This is election week here in America, and as fortune would have it, this is the topic that I've been dealt to speak on this week. I think I've mentioned before that when I was younger, my non-negotiable was anti-war. And I came to realize over time that this was an unrealistic expectation to have on somebody who was running to be the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the United States. So I amended my non-negotiable, and those who know me know that this is in line with my character, to be what I think of as pro-civilization. And what I mean by that is that I have this variety of issues that I weigh in each candidate and issue and see which I find most favorable and least favorable in the pro-civilization camp. For example, if a candidate tends to be pro-education, pro-sciences, pro-arts, I'll probably vote for them. On the other side of the coin, if a candidate is anti-sciences, anti-education, anti-arts, anti-public broadcasting, I will probably never vote for that person. And I feel that the person that I am about to speak on encapsulates this concept. He was a pro-civilization president, and that extended to his entire administration with an integrity. I know that as an American, I'm supposed to say that Abraham Lincoln was my favorite president, and I love Lincoln. I probably have more books about Lincoln and by Lincoln than any other president. But my favorite president of the United States was Theodore Roosevelt. So many people have this image of Theodore Roosevelt as this very masculine figure, and I know that I've spoken about machismo on these videos before as a sort of overcompensation of masculinity for somebody who's insecure. This was not the case with Roosevelt. Rather, he grew up a very sickly child, a lot of illnesses in his childhood, and so he spent the rest of his life overcompensating with a vigorousness, a strenuousness, trying to burn with the intensity of 1,000 white suns. And I feel that he accomplished it. Many of you may know the story that when he was campaigning, he was about to give a speech and he was shot in the chest by a would-be assassin who was then caught, and they bandaged up Roosevelt. They weren't able to get the bullet out there, or ever, really. It stayed in his body for the rest of his life. And bandaged, he got up after having just been shot in the chest and gave his hour-long speech. That's the kind of man that Roosevelt was. And as somebody who struggles with a lot of anxiety about health, I find that so inspiring. He could have been many things. He could have been a historian. He wrote a book about the Naval War of 1812 before getting into politics. And he could have been a biologist. He studied to be, in fact. He fell into politics, became mayor, and revamped the police force, became governor, and then was so effective that the powers that be kind of tried to cart him off into this honorific position of vice president that was high honor, but the only real power was if the president happened to die. And then guess what happened to President McKinley? As president, he achieved so much. He gave us the Panama Canal. He gave us the national parks. A lot of people think of Roosevelt as this big game hunter, which he was, but what a lot of people don't realize is that he would bring the pelts home as specimens to donate to the Smithsonian for scientific study. That's the kind of man he was as well. He was very concerned with building this civilization in this country, which you might say his relative who came down the road also was in his own way trying to do with his great society. So there are some of my thoughts about the presidency and who my favorite president was. Be sure to go out and vote this week. Maybe think about what your non-negotiables are, and maybe think about what you think would be pro-civilization, but do go out and vote. It's so important for democracy, which is the best of civilization. Ta-ta.